Hey, this is More Than Velocity. I'm Bart Pear here with Ryan Croton and Jordan Osagara. And today we have Bullpen Pitching, which is a facility near Dulles Airport in the Arlington, D.C. area. Great little facility. You got Zach Dials and John Ghyzel with us from them. And they're going to talk about what they do there. And they do a lot of good things there. They actually have implemented ArmCare. And so I always like to see how different facilities and teams are using it. And so I think we're going to have some really good conversations. Now, Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Bullpen and then tell us how you first saw the ArmCare system and how you ended up talking with Jordan?
Sure. Yeah, we got established in 2012 after I retired from professional baseball, and started with just a couple guys. John is actually one of my first guys when I opened, and we've been together ever since. I've been slowly building over time, and developing our system, and kind of focusing on our strength and our niche, which is developing players and getting them committed to the next level. To this point, we've sent about 170 guys on to school, and hopefully we can double that, over the next 5 or 10 years. But our big focus, with our players is development from the ground up. We're taking mediocre, average, players, and literally showing them everything when it comes to arm prep and post recovery, mechanical stuff, obviously like pitch development, strength training. So we kind of focus on every aspect that we can to develop our guys. With armcare.com, it was a couple years ago, one of my college players had come back home for the summer, and he was telling me about it, and kind of showed me the system and kind of went through an assessment. And I was just like, whoa, like I love this, because I've kind of just programmed everything on my own and always felt like I wasn't really doing a great job, because I feel like it's very hard to individualize with a high volume of player. And once I saw the system, I spoke with Jordan, and I was like, yep, I want to do this, and we're all in. So, bought the system, and we've had every one of our players, get on it ever since. And we use it as a way to not only assess our guys, but also to obviously, keep them healthy throughout the season.
Very cool. Very cool. Jordan, what's your take? When do you remember first talking to Zach?
Yeah, I remember Zach reached out, and like we talked about a little bit before, I don't remember all the details. I was a little hazy, but I do remember having some conversations. And one thing I do remember is going, yeah, I want to go see these guys go all in, because what they're doing is they're taking all that information. They're teaching a player a process. They're teaching a player how to prepare, in a sense, be self-reliant, to where they're not having to rely on a facility. And that's why I really gravitate towards setups like you guys have. We've got some other groups that have been on the podcast before that do things very similar. And you saw kind of a hole where you're like, look, if I really want to teach these guys a process, I know that I can't do all the programming for 200 or more guys, which I know sometimes you have over 200 guys in your facility. Before we started filming, obviously, you were talking about how right now, just on Sunday alone, you have over 100 high school kids running through on a given day. So you can't hold each player's hand. You're teaching them to be self-reliant and doing the things that need to be done. And we obviously saw that hole where we could kind of come in and fill that for you. So that way, now you can spend more time actually impacting the player from a skill standpoint. And then we kind of cover your basis on where, that programming of the arm strength comes in. So I thought it was a really good fit, a really good way to kind of move things forward. And obviously you guys have a very deep knowledge of what the game is. One thing I would like to go over is, because you do set yourselves apart from other facilities in teaching players a process. What does day one look like if a player comes into your guys' facility? What does that look like on your end?
We'll get them warmed up, obviously, and then once we get them warmed up, we'll do a body composition analysis with our Evolt system, and then actually test them on ArmCare and kind of just see where their arm health is at, and kind of get that base measurement. Kind of teach them the ropes with the system, make sure that they're understanding how to follow the videos and all that stuff, which obviously you guys make it really easy to do. And then we'll let them get warmed up. We will have them get up on the mound and throw a handful of pitches just to do some biomechanical analysis and some slow motion videos, so that we can kind of look at some absolutes that we follow from a mechanical standpoint. And then John will take over and do a strength and mobility assessment with them. Once we complete all that, we kind of sit down with the player and his parents and kind of go through all the details and kind of show him where he's at, And, if there's any major issues that come up, we'll address those and kind of explain why it's an issue and what we have to do to fix it.
And then real quick, since we got John here, who's kind of seen both of it as a player and a coach, how has the system evolved with what you guys have been doing? Obviously, the implementation of ArmCare was new from when you first started on, but how have things changed? Because that's one of the impressions that I get in talking with Zach on a routine basis, is that you guys are always looking to improve, to get better, use the data, and really equip your guys as player in your group to really make strides.
Yeah. When I first started with Zach, I was 13 years old. Zach had just finished with pro ball and he was just getting into giving private lessons. And he was giving lessons out of a facility that also had like hitting coaches and stuff in it. And now we've got our own place, but originally it was just Zach giving lessons, to one or two guys at a time during the week. And so it was really quite simple for him to individualize stuff because he had one or two guys in there at a time. He could very easily break stuff down individually for each guy in terms of warming up, post throwing, actual throwing mechanics, and all that kind of stuff. And then as word got around that he was a really good coach and we started getting a lot more players coming in, now there's 5, 6 guys per hour, 7, 8 guys per hour, 10 guys per hour. And the more guys we have coming in there, the harder it is to individualize everything for each player, even though that really is what is going to give the best outcome, is that individual program for each guy. And so over the years, as we've just built up the amount of clients we have, the number of guys that are in the facility at one time has just steadily risen. Finding ways to individualize programming for each player to best help them while not having to sit down personally and write a program for 200 people is huge. It's always kind of towing that line between individualizing for each guy to best benefit them, and then also managing our time enough where I'm not seeing a computer writing programs all day, and I can actually be on the floor coaching and helping these guys in person. And that's definitely just been the biggest evolution, is using the data available, using tests that are available, using technology that's available to allow our coaching to scale to the amount of clients that we have. And obviously ArmCare has been huge for that because it takes the pre-throwing and the post-throwing out of our hands. Once we teach the guys how to do a proper test, how to not cheat on the mobility screen, how to follow the videos, after that, pre-throw, post-throw is out of our hands. And you guys do a really good job at taking care of that. So it frees us up to focus a lot more on the throwing side of things, the lifting side of things, and allows us more time to be on the floor coaching and not writing programs.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I know we like to hear. At least I do. I don't know about you, Bart and Ryan, but that's kind of the way it's designed, is we want to take time off the plate of the coach so you can actually spend time coaching, as opposed to hand holding through, different aspects of making sure they're doing the shoulder strength perfect, or running the test. Once it's done, you guys don't need to sit there and watch it anymore. So being able to spend more time coaching is obviously the end goal. I've obviously asked a lot of questions and talked a lot. So Ryan and Bart, I don't know if you guys have anything to throw in right now.
I mean, the whole key that I'm hearing, which is the way to go, is trying to make your athletes autonomous. One of the things that I had really seen over the course of my career, and still, is that the best athletes have the best process, and it's quite extensive. Even when we scouted, I know on previous podcasts talked about my role in scouting, but I evaluated questionnaires and scored habits, competitive habits, preparation habits, recovery habits. Essentially, these athletes that have more detail and they follow a plan, and they're able to also adjust off that plan, but they're able to take control of their own career, I think is essential. And just like what you said, Jordan, the less that they can involve the coach, because, quite honestly, the coaches are very transient. Minor league baseball, if you're really good, hopefully you only have a coach at the minor league level for 2 weeks, and you get progress. So, if the athlete doesn't have a really good process, and one that they don't have owned, their opportunities for higher performance diminish and their opportunities for injury increase. So it's good to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've trained guys all the way up to the big league level, but our niche is definitely high school athletes. And when you're dealing with high school athletes, their knowledge base is essentially zero when they come into the facility. So a lot of times we're just educators, on top of just giving them drill work to do, but like just teaching them what a pitching delivery is, teaching them how to take care of their bodies, teaching them just basic maintenance on themselves because they don't know anything. And so that education aspect of it and just giving them the knowledge that they need to help take care of themselves is the foundation of anything we do before we actually try to dig into drill work or actually changing their throwing mechanics. They have to actually understand what they need to be doing.
So on that, we were talking a little bit of the process in the minor leagues, and John, I know that before we were talking, you played a little bit in the minor leagues. We actually, ran against each other there when I was kind of that hybrid role in the AZL back before it was called the Arizona Complex League. I was with the Angels in 2017, as well as like a traveling role. So I know we ran into the Reds a few times. I don't know if you pitched against us. I don't think you did. I would remember a name like Ghyzel. That's a weird one to spell, so I'd remember that. But go through kind of your process. I know you said you had a little bit of some shoulder stuff going on and kind of how ArmCare impacted that a little bit, if you don't mind going through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was drafted in 2017 by the Reds, came up with them for my first 3 years. It was pretty standard progression, one level every year, played in short season and then played in low A, then played in high A. And then had the COVID year. During the COVID year, unbeknownst to me, I was actually having some shoulder issues. It never presented with any pain, so I didn't realize I was having any problems. But when COVID ended and we actually got back to the complex, they did like the intake ortho physical. And basically I didn't have an infraspinatus anymore. What had happened was I had a nerve entrapment in my shoulder, and my infraspinatus was not being innervated anymore. So it had like completely atrophied, was essentially useless. And so half of my external rotators were turned off. So I had a seriously weak shoulder, even though I didn't have any pain with throwing. And that same year was the year that Zach discovered ArmCare. And so I was not with him at the time. I was off playing, but he actually mailed me an ArmCare kit. And he said, dude, you got to check this out. So, I opened my box in the clubhouse, got the force thing all set up, did my first test, and it was like, yeah, your shoulder sucks. And which I already knew at that point, but the numbers are right there. It's like, wow, your external rotation strength is half of your internal rotation strength. And so with that, the app just gave me tons and tons of programming, and due to the severe atrophy of my shoulder, it never got back to what it was. But I think if I hadn't been doing that stuff throughout the year to at least make it as strong as it could be with only, half of a rotator cuff, I would have fallen apart even more than I did. So I ended up having to retire after that season, just because no matter how much work I did, I couldn't get my shoulder strength back up to what it was. And so I was running into all kinds of issues. When my teres minor was fully rested and can kind of pick up the slack, I threw well. When it wasn't and I didn't have a rotator cuff, I threw terribly. I ended up having to hang it up because of that, but I wouldn't have even made it through that last season without, the band work that I was doing to really target that stuff.
That's a really interesting story. I mean, people really think, hey, my arm's fine unless it's hurting. And they just go and push through and keep going unless there's pain there. And for you to, I mean, it sucks the way you found it out, but for you to understand, hey, this isn't working exactly the way it's supposed to, and there's things to do to fix it. I mean, that's kind of one of the whole things that we're trying to do with ArmCare, is that you can see what's going on before you get to that level of pain and sitting out on the IL.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got over 200 players there. You're pretty impressive number that have gone on from high school to college ball and beyond. What's kind of, why do you think your guys are having that level of success?
I think our guys buy into what we're selling. It's like we're just teaching them how to appreciate and understand what work ethic is. It's like we teach them to be grinders, and it's like we don't act like we have the most aesthetically pleasing, beautiful, facility in the world, because we don't. We have a grinder facility, and the grinder type kids love and appreciate kind of what we do here. It's like we take a lot of pride in our work ethic. And I think, when it's all said and done, obviously there's various levels of talent and ability, but if you don't know how to actually put the time and the effort and the work in, it's like you're going to, like, those grinders are going to catch up to you. You're going to plateau, and then you're going to get past. So I think we're really good at that aspect of it. I also think we do a great job just supporting our guys, and not just like, oh, hey, you come do your, hour-long lesson, and then we have zero communication with you. We don't care about you until we see you, the following week or whatever. It's like, our guys are in here all the time. We have, very strong relationships with our players, and they know that they can rely on us. And it's kind of more like a clubhouse feel, more than just like a facility. And that's kind of what I always wanted to create. I wanted a place that guys wanted to be at, even if they weren't really coming to do anything. They just wanted to be around the guys and kind of hang out. And I think we have that environment. And it's like, it's kind of automated now, where our older guys are really good at helping our younger players understand how to push themselves, and, how to kind of like positively kind of push those younger guys to understand that they're capable of doing more, that they can work harder, they can be better. And, if you put the effort in, you can kind of do what you want with this game.
Yeah, I think hand in hand with that kind of grinder mentality stuff is we don't baby our guys, even from the get-go. Like an 11-year-old comes in, he's going to have the same like 2-hour plus workflow that a high school senior is going to have. He's going to come in, he's going to do his activation, he's going to do his arm care prep work, he's going to do his plyos, he's going to do his throwing, he's going to do his mechanical drills, his mobility correctives, his lifts, his post throwing, all that stuff from the time they're 10, 11, whenever they come into the facility for the first time, until they graduate high school and leave. It's kind of a baptism by fire. But by the, when you start doing that at 11, 12 years old, by the time you're 18, you're really good at it. And you've had a lot of time to progress to the level you need to progress to. And I think that's one thing that we do well, is just kind of throwing guys into the whole process. And look, like this, 2-hour workflow or whatever it is, that daily 2-hour workflow is what it takes to be good. And whether you're 9 years old or 18, 20 college age guy, this is what it takes. And if you want to do it, do it.
And what I'm hearing is culture. So for me, that's one of the big things, is always breaking into the culture aspect of it, to where one of the reasons I gravitate towards what your guys' facility does is you're keeping the lights on. You need to make money, obviously. Everybody has to eat, but you're not just bringing in whoever it is you can to make a buck. It's like, hey, you don't fit this system. I'm not going to lower my expectation to meet yours. You're going to have to raise yours to meet ours. So that's the big thing I like to see, is you're getting kids to start putting in that work ethic and understand it's going to take things, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort to accomplish what it is they want to do. And, a lot of people know we have these guarantees for the health and velocity on our website. You can go on there and see it. And we'll get some kids that reach out, and, I always have to email Bart, because I'm like, hey, I don't know how to handle some of this stuff. Kids like, hey, I haven't gained any velocity. And Bart, who knows how to work computers better than I do, goes through and looks at it, like, this kid's had the system for 5 days. It's like, yeah, things aren't going to happen in 5 days. This is right. It's a little bit of a culture thing, that everybody wants this instant gratification. In a world where people are selling instant gratification, it's good to see that you guys are actually selling a process, and a process leads to continued results, and, preparation leads to success. So, I don't want to go into and give away any industry secrets for you guys, but if you don't mind going into, how do you adjust a guy's process, or how do you tweak a guy's process? What are some of those key indicators you look for? If that's something we don't want to talk about, obviously say no, because I don't want to go into what you guys are doing and give anything away for free.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any real secret to it. It's like we have our mechanical absolutes that we follow with our guys. And I think we're just very good at communicating that. We're good at educating them on, here's maybe why you're not as efficient within your delivery as you should be. And then we give them, very specific drills that target that aspect of their delivery, and eventually try to blend it into the whole. And, I think, again, like that's a strength of ours. It's like we're real heavy on doing constraint drills and just isolating that one aspect and having them work on it over and over and over again, putting in, that work over time. And, our guys become very efficient. It's like folding a sword. It's like, it's going to take you 2,000, repetitions to even begin to understand what we're trying to get you to do. And then it's going to take you another, 8,000 to really, perfect it. And even then, we're probably still going to have to work on it. But again, that's why the grinder mentality, I think, has to be appreciated a little bit more.
Yeah. Just to piggyback on that, when Zach described our kind of assessment process at the beginning, going through the ArmCare test, the mobility screen, the strength screen, the first day they're in there, we lay out for them, you're bad at this, you're good at this. If you want to get better, this needs to improve. And then I think a big reason why a lot of our guys do so well is because we give them the opportunity to work on it as much as they want. We're not like a one lesson a week. You don't pay by the lesson with us. You have a monthly membership, and if you want to be in here 7 days a week, you can be in here 7 days a week. And so we tell guys what they need to get better at. We show them what they need to do to get better at those things. And then it's entirely up to them to work on it as much as they want to work on it. And I think going back to the culture thing, our older guys have grasped that concept and really run with it. And so they're a really good example for our younger guys. We got, I don't know, 10 plus high school kids throwing 90 in here right now, 90 plus. And so it's like, hey, I want to be a high school guy throwing 90. What are those guys doing that I'm not doing? It's like, well, they're in here every single day. They're doing their stuff every single day. And then that culture combined with just giving them the opportunity to work on it as much as they want to work on it, those motivated kids, really excel in that environment.
So I'm curious, you've got all these kids, especially at the high school level, and the better ones are the worst ones in terms of their workloads, because they've got travel ball, they've got maybe high school teams. They're the ones getting invited to the showcases every other weekend. How are you helping them manage their workload and fatigue and those type of things?
Will you talk about that?
Sure. So we have a couple things. First of all, it goes back to the education. We do our best to help them understand what's good for their body and what's not good for their body. I'm never going to be able to change what your high school coach is asking you to do. I'm never going to be able to change what your travel coach is asking you to do, but I can at least educate you on when it's smart for you to say no to them. And so that's definitely step one. And then step two for us is, in addition to the ArmCare screens with the dynamometer that you guys send out, we do weekly grip strength tests with like a hand dynamometer, and then weekly counter movement jumps on our jump mat. And we track that every week. And I have a program on my computer that will show me just a line graph of where they're at with each of those things over the course of the season. And so every week I check everybody that comes in. If there's a significant drop off in either grip strength or counter movement jump height, it's a pretty good indication that they're starting to get fatigued. And then I'll pull those kids off to the side and have a conversation about, okay, well, how much did your coach make you throw this week? Do you have a tournament coming up this weekend? It's probably smart for you to just play shortstop this week and not actually pitch. Or, maybe we need to adjust your lifting schedule or your throwing schedule. And then the third piece of that is just, we always have stuff that we can do with them when they're in the facility that doesn't involve throwing, especially during the spring and summer when they're throwing a lot for their teams. When they come in for their lesson or for their mechanical work, we always ask them, how's your arm feel? Did you throw yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago? When are you throwing next? And we can go through an entire hour-long lesson with them without them picking up a baseball. So, the combination of just educating them on how to take care of themselves, and then our monitoring to make sure they're okay, and then not adding any unnecessary stress to their workload and doing things without throwing when they're in the facility, all of that combines to hopefully mitigate, those overuse injuries that you see with a lot of guys who are playing on 3 different travel teams now and running all over the country.
It's interesting because the system you run is very much like what we had done with the Angels. We had 6 factors. There were 5 measures for each across just pain and dysfunction, physical readiness, workload, biomechanics. We had on-field process metrics and lifestyle factors. And it's awesome to see that you're doing that, because you got a multidimensional lens. And really our gateway into the soul of the players were arm strength measures. And you got to make a tough decision. We weren't really liked, I would say, by the players and the coaches when we were there, because, if we saw, and it didn't matter if you were a high level prospect or not, if we saw a guy that was really depreciated in all those things, but couldn't sense fatigue metabolically, like having their arm, feeling burning or anything like that, even if they were pain-free, some of those guys, we yanked them for 10 to 14 days and fixed them. And out of the 11 kids, 4 of them touched the big leagues within 18 months. Now, if they had Tommy John surgery, they might never ever seen the big leagues. So the fact is, you guys are really leading the charge in terms of holistic health for the players. And it's important that, people listen to you in this podcast as the really performance drivers. and communicate with everybody that's involved in tapping into the players' physical, emotional, and competitive resources to do the right thing and fix them.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, it's funny that you said the players didn't like to see you come around very much. And I just kind of envisioned myself when I was in pro ball, and I was, I can envision myself being one of those guys that would be like, no, I don't need to shut down. I'm fine. I'm just tough through it. But, it's like, I wish we would have had, something like what, you guys are doing with ArmCare or what you were doing with the Angels. I wish we would have had something like that when I was playing, because, maybe I wouldn't have gotten injured, as well.
It's definitely a bigger conversation, because even the words that you used, we didn't use. You're using words that a pitching coach does. And that's where we got really into hot water, is that we would say it's a build-up phase. The pitching coaches would say it's a shutdown phase. The semantics are really important when you communicate to the athlete, communicate to the coaches. People that are listening out there, if you're using our product, you don't use it as a shutdown application. That's a negative connotation to taking care of an athlete's performance and health. That drives me effing bonkers when I hear that. So, the approach is, hey, we're building you up, and you got to empower the player to say, if you keep kicking ass for your total arm strength and your arm score keeps going up over 100, you're not fatiguing, the ball will be in your hand as much as possible. You see the difference in saying, we got this tool. If you're fatigued, or, we don't like what your arm's doing, we're going to pull you at a competition. We got to fix you. That's the communication strategies are critical. We have stuff out there on YouTube to talk about this stuff, but you guys are the drivers, the people that are in private industry, not the major league teams. Sorry, those guys are focused on their players, right? You are focused on your guys in the major league level. You might have a team of 6 sports scientists. They're really 99% of them are focused on top prospects and major league players. Those other guys get kicked to the curb. So, you guys are really driving it. And hopefully in the game of Major League Baseball, they all start to coordinate on this app and our platform to communicate and leverage your eyeballs. So, let's keep pushing that message forward, that, you're protectors. You're not trying to get in anyone's hair. Everybody wins. When your athlete's healthy, they're in your location getting better. And when they're available and performing better with a major league team, the team wins. Everybody gets bonuses, you see? So, we got to have better communication strategies, I think, all around. And what you're doing, I'm glad that you guys are on the podcast, bringing to light that you got a kick-ass approach to evaluating player performance and health.
Yeah, we actually ran into some of that resistance my last year with the Reds too. They started handing out like Aura rings and Modus, I guess it's called Pulse now, sensors, so they were tracking sleep, tracking arm stress, workload, and all that stuff. And, I would say over half the players refused to wear that technology, because they're like, oh, this is just going to be another reason to keep me off the field. They're going to see that I didn't sleep well last night. They're going to see that, my arm workload was a little too high yesterday and I'm not going to get to play. And fighting that battle against the coaches all season long just didn't allow for any actual change or progress to be made in terms of that wearable technology and the actual data side of player development. So hopefully, we can kind of turn a corner as a baseball community and show that, like you just said, these are technologies that are going to keep you on the field more often, not pull you off of it.
Yeah, just to jump on that too, is when we were monitoring our guys, and whether, no matter how they're terming it, I don't like the term shutdown either. We're building this guy up, whatever it may be. It's like, no, we're going to get ahead of you on your fatigue numbers so we can make sure that you're finishing this season better than when you started. 100% of those guys, when they came out of that deload period, came back throwing 2 to 4 miles an hour harder, because we were monitoring, we were seeing fatigue starting to set in. We're seeing those strength numbers go down. So we're going, you know what? This is not only going to make sure this guy stays healthy over the big picture, but in the short, mid, and long term, this guy's going to throw harder and perform better. And that's why 4 of those 11, if you're getting 35, 40% of your guys getting to the big leagues, that's a really good number. That's unheard of, So these guys were coming back throwing harder. If you throw harder, that's a very high predictor of success, no matter what level of the game you're at. So it's a lot more than just health. Health is important, but velo's cool.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely. So what's on the horizon for bullpen pitching? Are you running out of space over there? You looking to expand? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of been busting at the seams for years, and I'm always looking around for a new space to expand a little bit, and it just kind of never seems to work out. This area is kind of tough. It's very high income area. I mean, we're in the two wealthiest counties in America, so price per square foot's quite high. But that's kind of the plan within the next couple of years to expand a little bit. Hopefully, add a coach or two, and continue to just do what we do, and hopefully get better while we continue to do it.
Yeah, obviously the business side of things always is what it is, but it also kind of breaks my heart when I see these kids just go into bad coaches and they receive bad coaching and they don't get better, and it ends their baseball careers. So business aside, the bigger we can get and the more kids in this area we can get under our umbrella, the less bad coaching there is going to be, and the more these kids are going to have an opportunity to succeed, which I think is my main goal with the expansion.
Awesome. Well, John and Zach, hey, this has been a great podcast. Appreciate you guys coming on. Best of luck going forward. And if you're definitely in the Northern Virginia area, you should be checking them out for sure. So until next time, take care, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
you.
us on.
Appreciate it.